Arnold, you have famously developed universalism as a theory of personal identity where there is one subject of experience underlying all conscious beings. And you've also worked on the mind body problem. You have an article, well known story of a brain, approach to functionalism. Um, what is your approach to the mind body problem, and how does it articulate with your views of universalism?
Yes, thank you very much. First, I must emphasize most emphatically that universalism, as a view about personal identity, has nothing to say about the mind body problem.
Okay.
So, my view of the mind body problem is independent of my view about personal identity. So, what is my view on the mind body problem? I have an argument that I consider enormously persuasive in favor of the view called functionalism. I have some problems with it as well. But let me offer to you, as briefly as I can, what this argument that looks decisive is like. Imagine that last night, while I was sleeping, a mad scientist had replaced my right visual cortex with a device that is quite different in materials and character from the right visual cortex, but had the same input-output relationship to the rest of the brain and the nerves and so on. Okay. Now, what can we know from the mere stipulation of what we could call the functional equivalence of this device to the natural right visual cortex? We know that when I woke up this morning, I would behave and think in all the same ways I normally would. Because otherwise it doesn't meet the stipulation of the same input-output relationship to the rest of the brain. So I'm walking around making... Now, the left field of vision was being processed in the replaced visual cortex. And the right field of vision is being processed in the natural visual cortex on the other side. So these things are going on today. But I'm not saying, oh God, there's something wrong with the left side of my vision. I better see a doctor because it's either absent or it's metallic or something like that. Has a different character. How do I know I'm not saying that? Because of the functional equivalence, the input-output relationship. So, what must be going on inside me as a person with a mind? I must be experiencing everything in the left side of the field of vision as I would normally, in a similar way to what's happening in the other field of vision. The qualia must look the same to me. I could tell you which things are red and blue and all. I could get poetic about them in the same way. It seems to me that functional equivalence requires that the experience be the same. And that means we're getting to what consciousness consists in. It consists in this functional character of experience. Let me make a few distinctions in this. That, of course, here I'm talking about the initial processing. And the natural thing to think is that the intrinsic character of what's going on in there makes the qualia what they are, and so on. Replace something with different chemical and they look different. And that's got to be wrong because of what I've just now established about what a replacement would have to be like. So that's got to be wrong. Now, there's the initial processing, and then there are the various ways it affects the rest of the mind. It's in those ways it affects the rest of the mind that the nature of the experience is completely determined, not in the initial processing. And those are readinesses to behave towards things as though they have certain qualities. So what I'm claiming is those readinesses to behave appropriate to things being a certain way actually are the experience of those things being that way. All right. Now, there's much more I have to say to fill this out, but that'll give you an idea of.
Yeah, no, that's I understand that. The question is that on such a functionalist account, are you able to account for mental states and the seemingly different characterization of mental states versus physical states? So you can you have your physical states in a functionalist way of thinking, whether it's with neurons or silicon or whatever else you can imagine, but difficult to associate those with the experience of qualia and mental states.
Well, that's why this thing works so nicely, because you've got a mix here of the naturally occurring vision on one side of the field of vision and all the thoughts, the imaginings, the sorts of things that would take place in my mind during the day in response to what I'm seeing, right? You've got the mix of the mere functionally equivalent with all the other things different, and the things that are exactly as they naturally are. And they don't clash at all. They can't. They work together. And it seems to me a priori true that the experience must be of the sort that allows them to work together for this to be happening. Because my behavior, my imagining, all of that, is still carrying on in this thing where you've merely maintained the functional character of one crucial part of it. So that's enough for that part. Then you can imagine replacing other functional parts of the brain with gadgets that have the same input-output relationship to the rest of the brain, and keep going and going. Now, there are issues that arise as you're moving inside the actual mental activities. And I published a paper, called What is a Mind, where I went into this in great detail. And there are all kinds of things you can bring into it, like empty shells that have a random play of energy on their surface and get the rest of it to function properly. And so I subject myself to, quite a lot of challenge on this. But I think it works. I think it, and it seems conclusive to me. I think it's impossible. You can establish it's impossible a priori that there wouldn't be the same qualia on that side of my field of vision as long as there's the functional equivalence, that's all that counts. in what makes for the character of vision.